Welcome back to Looped In, the podcast that brings you behind the scenes of Liam and the Loupes, a heartfelt children's book that follows the journey of a young boy with autism and the incredible people who love him. I'm your host, Austin Spiro, and I'm joined by the wonderful author of this book series, MJ Lopez. And today's episode is an exciting one. We're giving you an inside look at where we are in the production process, what's coming together, and what's evolving. Plus, we're thrilled to introduce a brand new character, someone who adds a fresh, meaningful layer to Liam's world and brings even more heart to the story. So, whether you're here as a parent, caregiver, educator, or just someone who loves children with autism, you're part of this journey with us. Let's get looped in. MJ, how's it going today?
It's going great, Austin. Thank you so much for that great introduction, my man. And I am thrilled to be back, episode two. I made it farther than I thought we would, right?
Right?
But
Yeah, it's
thank you
one
so much
episode.
for being here, and thank you so much for taking time of your busy schedule. And I'm
Two
I'm
episodes are always
excited
better
to
than one, right?
let everybody know how we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's just jump right into it. How are we doing? Where are we at in the process?
Well, normally, right now, we are in production. We are no longer in pre-production because the book is actually being produced. We are about halfway illustrated. Our illustrator, his name is Shawnee. He's doing a great job illustrating these thoughts, and it's taken a while because when an author and an illustrator speak, sometimes what's in the author's mind doesn't translate the same way
Right.
to the artist. So we have to speak together, and we're both neurodivergent, and we are from different cultures. So it's a really exciting thing to work with Shawnee. He's a great artist,
Right.
and sometimes he gives me some great ideas. This is my first book. This is not his first book, so I'm
Right.
having to rely on him a lot, on him telling me, hey, this looks great, this looks great. And where we are right now is we are literally halfway through illustration. We
Okay.
are we are halfway through illustration. I would say in a few more weeks we're going to be completely illustrated. After we are completely illustrated, we are going to lay out the book. That means put the words where they should go. Pretty much that's the lingo. We're gonna lay out the book. It's pretty much you're gonna put the words where you want to read them. So whether that be thought bubbles or little stuff in the bottom, you're gonna pick the font and how the book is literally laid out, and then you design the front and back covers and all that good stuff. And after Shawnee helps me lay it out, we are going to print. And after we print, we show you what we got. So we're about we are literally halfway through illustration, but through the whole process, I would say we're about 35% of the way there already.
Oh, great.
So we
Awesome.
are we are in good shape to publish April 2nd, 2026, because that is World Autism Awareness Day. And our plan is to, for those of you who are just joining us in the pack, our plan is to, for the first 5 years, we're going to release one book every Autism Awareness Day. And we are in good shape to do that, to meet that goal. And I cannot wait to show you everything. And I wish I could spoil the surprise for you and show you all the great illustrations that we already have. And if
Right.
you don't stop me, I will. So please stop me because I want to spoil the whole thing. I'm just so excited to want to share this with everybody. But yes, that is where we are right now. We are also on on track to present ourselves in Clarksville Comic Con. That will be on I'm sorry, October 18th.
Hmm.
October 18th, we're going to be on Clarksville Comic Con, and they have some really good stuff. If you're in the Clarksville area, which you should be because pretty much all our listeners are in the Clarksville area, if you like professional wrestling, oftentimes they have professional wrestlers there. They have artists, they have toy collectors, they have cosplay, and this year, Liam and the Loupes will be there. And with some pre-production stuff, obviously we will not be published by then, but we can share some really cool stuff to get
Right.
everybody excited about launch. So that's
Yeah.
where we are, my friend.
So we're about a third of the way through the book, and I know you said this is your first book. Maybe could you? And we talked a little bit about in the last episode what the process has been up to this point. What do you think? What are some surprises that you've had in this process? Something that was surprisingly challenging, a challenge that you may not have seen, or something that was easier than you thought it was going to be?
Um, to be quite honest with you, the surprises have been nothing but pleasant. This process looks a lot harder than it really is. To
Hmm.
be 100% honest with you, it's intimidating because you're like, oh my goodness, like how am I gonna publish a book? How am I gonna draw this? How am I gonna write this? How am I gonna find the time to do this? And it looks like I hate to tell people this to just do it, right? Because it's simplistic and I understand adults have lives and everything, but I promise you, if you sit down and write 10 minutes a day, the book's gonna come together and you will see how how the surprises have been great because I didn't realize I was gonna be I could be a published author. I thought, somebody had to hire me. I didn't even know you could self-publish. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
um, it's been surprisingly not easy, but it's been much more doable than I thought it would be.
Right.
Um, and the only challenge that I've had is, as I was mentioning earlier, it's trying to convey my thoughts from my head to my mouth to the art palette, and so the illustrator can see my idea and then he can get it from his brain and show me how he sees it. That
Right.
process is challenging because it's two different types of artists, pretty much. You have the
Right.
writer and you have the illustrator, and you obviously you want to respect the illustrator. And I am a believer. I treat tattoos this way and I treat haircuts this way too. I don't like to give too much detail and instruction to an artist because then they don't. I've found out that the more you let the artist be themselves, the better the work comes out. Sometimes you have to trust the artist a little bit too.
Right.
And if you're out there and you have if you're out there and you wanna write a book for children, you're gonna have to illustrate it. And if you cannot draw a stick figure, like I cannot draw a stick figure to save my life, you're gonna have to work on your trust issues and you're gonna have to trust your illustrator so they can tell you, hey, this looks good because you're not an illustrator, you're a writer for a reason. If you were an illustrator, you could draw better than a stick figure. And that's been a challenge for me because I'm kind of a control freak, I'm kind of like, but I was not blessed with the ability to illustrate and draw and everything. So I had to trust someone. So that's been I gave you one of each. I gave you one pleasant surprise and one unpleasant one. Is like when you publish, you're gonna have to do a lot that's out of your comfort zone, and you're gonna have to
Right.
trust the illustrator or you're gonna have to trust someone else because you're writing the book and you're the one with the vision, but without the illustrator, you're nobody. Like
Right.
without UI works, there would be no Mickey Mouse. So
Right.
without Shawnee, there's no Liam Loop.
Right.
So I have to work with him, he has to work with me, and we have to come to an agreement. Not an agreement, but we have to like come to an understanding that he understands what I'm telling him because my wife has trouble understanding what I'm telling her, and she's been
Right.
dealing with me for a lot longer. So that's been the challenging part, and it's not really a challenge, it's just it's something that you have to do, and it's something that you have to kind of like let go a little bit of your control, just to let go a little bit. And as a writer, you're a little retentive about some things. No, I want this illustration to look like this. I
Yeah.
want it to look like this. And sometimes in your brain things look a lot better than they really do on paper. That's another
Right.
surprise that I found, that
Yeah.
if you're an author, what's in your brain sometimes is not drawable, it's not achievable, it's not illustratable because you're writing it in your own language and it looks a certain way in your brain, but you don't have a perfect palette in your brain either.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So
Right.
you have to kind of get used to compromising a little bit to you have this illustration in your head that this is what it's going to look like, but it's like trying to paint something in a color that doesn't exist because what
Right.
you're thinking is not possible to illustrate. We can do it this way. So
Right.
that's that's somewhat challenging to a average person. Imagine two neurodivergent dudes dealing with that. So
Right.
it's very exciting. It's very and we have to rely on our understanding and everything, but that's something that people with autism go through every single day at
Right.
work, at school. So, and this is the purpose of all this. So, thank you so much for talking about that because it's a challenge, but it's also an exciting challenge. And like I said, all at the end of the day, thank you. The thanks to him, the illustrator. Thanks to Corey, the editor. Thanks to you helping me here with this. This has been a lot easier than I thought it would be. So a lot, not easier, but a lot more achievable, if you may.
Right. So how you talked a little bit about compromise. So how much of the illustrate without giving away too much, obviously, how much of the illustration part of it, because obviously, you and your wife wrote the book, so you both have kind of an idea of, I'm sure you both had the same vision, but now you're bringing other people into this, right? So I'm sure, like you were talking about, there's different views of what the book should look like. And so how much of this book is, or the illustration part, how much of it is yours, how much of it is him, and how much of it is more of a blending of the two?
Well, I would say that, let's see, if you want to talk about, let's talk about Liam for a minute, right? Liam,
Yeah.
Abby, or Eddie. The way they talk, the way they feel, the way they look, the way they walk, or the way they walk, that's my creation. But how they look, that's all him. Like the aesthetic. Like if you see
Okay.
Liam, he's a little chubby, he's got the little red cheeks. Abby's a little feisty, and she's got a hat and she's got a little ponytail, and Eddie's very intuitive, so he's got a little magnifying glass with him and everything. All those little details are the artists. The artist, you let the artist know. You when you write a book, you write a character Bible. If you're out there and you want to write a book, write you a character Bible and write kind of like a little Wikipedia entry about your character. Like if you want to give him a date of birth, remember this is your world. If you want to give him a date of birth, give him a date of birth or whatever you want. But the more detailed you are, the more it's like the more detailed you are, the more the artist understands you. And if you have to show him, like earlier, because he's from another culture, he was having trouble understanding one of our American customs. And I had to show him a picture of these of people performing this American custom, this ritual that we do and they don't. It's just how it is. It's just how some things are. And
Right.
I don't want to tell you what it is because obviously I don't want to spoil, but I literally had to show him a picture of people doing this. And I was like, look, this is what I have in mind. And I want them doing right here, right here, right here. And one of them can sit right here. You know what I'm saying? You can be a little original like that. But I give him the setting and the situation. Let's say, for instance, if I tell him they're sitting on a table having dinner, right? Then he draws one of them playing, like eating. He draws the other one looking around. He draws the other one throwing food around. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's a joint effort, I would say. It's a joint effort to create a character, and you really are you're bringing an entity to life, and it's a little surreal, to be quite honest with you, because
Yeah.
you're 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 creating something, and it's not like, obviously, I'm a father. It's totally different because it's a biological process of raising a child is different from literally speaking a character into existence, like Liam and Abby and Eddie. I pretty much spoke them into existence, and if I say jump, they jump. So
Right.
but you also have to be mindful that someone is helping you create this character. And unless you illustrate the character yourself, you're gonna have to give them a little bit of custody of the character. You see what I'm saying? So, and
Yeah.
and that's part of the process because the character the character doesn't belong to me. The character belongs to the people, obviously. Well, legally he belongs to me, but I want the character to belong to everybody. And
Right.
if he tells me, "Hey, listen, my experience as an illustrator, when somebody presents an anthropomorphic animal like this, is better if he's looking this way, or if he's facing the audience that way. So that's something the illustrator can help you with. So definitely establish a relationship with your illustrator, and you really want to be thorough and don't get to give them as much time as possible. Don't illustrate a book at the last minute. Don't do that because that's only asking for trouble. You don't want an artist working in a hurry.
Right.
That doesn't work. You know, they and so give them plenty of time. I think the illustration should take the longest because you give them plenty of time because that's what brings the book to life. So
Right.
that's that, and that is where we are. And
So speaking of where we are, you talked a little bit about Eddie. If you subscribe to our Facebook or our Instagram, you know this morning you already got a preview at what our new little guy Eddie looks like. If you're just now tuning in, whether you're on Spotify or YouTube, you can go ahead and subscribe. We're going to talk to you about a little a new character that was introduced earlier this morning. His name is Eddie. I'm going to let MJ speak a little more on Eddie because we're going to talk a little bit more about how he delivers more layers to this story, and he has a different relationship with Liam than necessary than his uh than his sister has. But we do have a new character. His name is Eddie. And he's about to come on the screen right now for those of you that are watching on YouTube. As you can see, he's a cute little guy, Raven with some glasses and some with a magnifying glass there. Obviously, he's going to be his friend at school. He'll be in some of the books. MJ, why don't you talk a little bit about Eddie? Whatever you can give about him, his character traits, and how he adds just a little more depth to this story.
oh, thank you. Well, Eddie is another character who is also neurodivergent. We've introduced two characters already. We introduced Liam, who is our main character, our superstar. He has autism, so he is neurodiverse. We've also introduced Abby, who is his sister, his littermate, his support system. And now we've introduced Eddie, who is a Raven, who is a classmate, and Eddie has autism as well. Now, why? Well, part of the reason why we are creating these books is to educate people about autism. Sadly, when there's a topic out there that's still being researched, there's a lot of misinformation about autism. And Eddie was written by me so I could show another flavor, if you may, quote unquote, of autism. So, because there's a saying in the autism community that says if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. There's it's a spectrum. So, while Liam is the type of person with autism who can overthink uh, a task and can get anxiety from it, Eddie will spend 6 hours thinking about it and not accomplish it. And those are two different flavors of autism. And we've all met people like that. We've all met people and who we know have autism, and we're like, wait a minute. Because sometimes, we don't understand autism. Like we're still discovering this. This is something novel. This is something that's still being talked about, still being researched, and a lot of people think I don't like it when people tell me I don't like it when people tell me you don't look like you have autism. And I know a lot of our listeners out there who do have autism or have a loved one who has autism have been doubted by people because apparently when you have autism, you have to look a certain type of way. That is what Eddie and Liam are going to teach us. Eddie and Liam are going to teach us that two people can have autism and act in totally different ways and face the same obstacles. Just because Eddie acts one way doesn't mean his life is easier than Liam or vice versa. A lot of people want to give a rank to how easy a person's autism is. And I understand there are different types of functionality. There's verbal and nonverbal. And next time that we meet, we are going to go deeper into this because my co-author, my wife, Crystal, is going to join us, and she is the one who understands this part of the research. So Eddie is going to show us a different flavor of autism than Liam, and not only that, those two, we're gonna meet a lot of other characters, but Eddie and Liam are going to show us. And I wanted to also read from straight from the DSM-5, which I'm showing to everybody right now. Hopefully you get to see it. There it is right there. There's the DSM-5. This is what we are using to write these characters. This is the DSM-5 has diagnostic criteria for people in the autism spectrum and for people with autism spectrum disorder. And we are reading this criteria, we are reading these specifiers, we are reading these diagnostic features, and we are writing them into these characters. So, in very short, obviously, in very short, in a very short way manner, we're going to define that the diagnostic criteria for autism according to the DSM-5, and I'm reading verbatim from there, is persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts as manifested by all of the following current or by history: deficits in social and emotional reciprocity. So, hello, and nothing there. Oh, that person's rude. No, that's not the case. They weren't rude or anything like that. Or there's a lack of, the conversation doesn't move back and forth, or reduced sharing of interests, emotions, affect, or failure to initiate conversation, or failure to pick up social cues. Deficits in nonverbal communication, behaviors used for social interaction. That's another type of criteria. So again, we are going deep in these books, and that is where our co-author Crystal is going to come very very handy on this. So that in a look and without spoiling them and without giving out too much is who Liam and Eddie are. So where Liam may be the type of person who, or the type of, creature. Obviously, he's a wolf, but Liam would represent the type of person with autism who is like, please don't touch me, don't give me a hug, don't come near me. I'm not very touchy-feely, and he would hurt your feelings that way. Eddie would be the type of person with autism who, if you say a fact about space and he knows you're incorrect, not only will he tell you you are incorrect, he will educate you for 6 straight hours onto so you don't make that mistake again. But they both do it because they care and they love you, and that is how they coexist, and that is how they complement each other, and that is why I wrote them that way.
You know, I'll add as an educator, or as a dean and a former teacher, I'll add a little bit to what I appreciate about Eddie, and Liam, really, because obviously they're classmates, so you can surmise that there's at least going to be some part where they're going to be at school.
Of course,
And
yes.
I what I appreciate about these two is that I'm very excited to show how these two characters can show how they go about school, how they tackle school, and the fact that they can just succeed at school along with everybody else, right? As a dean and as a former teacher, I will tell you that, you know, autism is truly a spectrum. We have students with autism that are in the general education classroom and, just in a classroom like 95% of children. And then we have, other students with autism that are in special day classes or life skill classes. It just, it varies, but the school system and the families and things, and entities like that, they really focus on what each student needs in order to succeed. And I see it every day that these, students with autism do, they do succeed, and in some aspects they do better than their peers. And, I think that's a very common misconception is students and kids with autism, one, they don't have very many friends, and two, they can't succeed at school. They just get passed along and they fail, right? Which is not true. I've seen it from my brother. And I've talked a little bit about my brother in the last episode, to many children who have autism. And if you let me ramble on a little bit, there's going to be, there's a difference between the educational definition of autism and the medical definition of autism, right? There's two different definitions of that, but they both, um, they both are, are based in deficits in social interaction, right? But
Right.
that doesn't mean that they can't have friends, and that doesn't mean they can't be friends with each other, and that doesn't mean that they can't succeed in school. And I think Liam and Eddie are going to do a fantastic job at being able to show parents and, students that as well. Um, I just
And, as
that
much as as much as people with autism are not gonna like this, okay? A lot of people, there's a lot of people with autism out there, and I know because I've talked to them and they feel the same way I do. A lot of people with autism are not going to like this. And the fact is that human beings need social interaction. They need it. I mean, I know I want to think sometimes, my wife has to remind me, because sometimes I just want to not interact with anybody because I'm that type. I'm an introvert. I don't, when we were locked in for COVID, it did not faze me because I was okay. So, but sociologically and psychologically, human beings, we are social creatures. It's in our DNA. It's in our this that is how we have thrived. So imagine if part of your makeup as a human being is struggling with social interaction. You are already behind the eight ball the day you were born because autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder. That means it has its onset during the formative years, according to the DSM. Again, when I talk about autism, I'm just reading what the DSM says. So if you have a deeper question, we'll have somebody who can answer them next time. But it's a disorder that it has its onset in the beginning of life, and it's like part of your condition as a human is that you must socialize and you must form a part of a society that is how humans thrive. So humans thrive through social interaction, and a person with autism is born struggling with social interaction. So you can see how from the get-go it's a struggle.
right. Yeah, it certainly is, but I think what this book is going to, or what these books are really going to reflect, is it is a struggle, but that doesn't mean they can't do it.
Correct. Yes, that
So,
doesn't mean there has been decades of research. I know we are barely scratching the surface, but that is not a reason we have decades of research already. We've written things and we've studied, so there are ways where people with autism can thrive. This is why the books are written so that we all know these are not, again, how I said in the first podcast, these are not books for kids with autism. These are books so anybody can learn about autism. So if you don't have autism, or if you don't think you know someone with autism, I guarantee you do. They just haven't been diagnosed yet. And that way, through these books, we can read them to our children and learn how we can we as adults can learn and we can teach our children, or we can learn along with our children, because as children we were not taught how to accept someone with autism because we barely knew this thing existed. So now we can prepare our children to better understand and this world, and better understand, hopefully, a friend or a family member who has autism, and be like, look, they don't mean to hurt your feelings. They just think this way, and this is how they function, and this is how they show affection. So, um,
right, right.
And one last thing about Eddie, a lot of people ask, why is he a Raven? And it's because um, I also try to include a little bit of realistic uh, social structure when it comes to animals. Now, obviously, these are anthropomorphic books, and wolves don't go to kindergarten. But according to uh, Dr. David Meach, who is the authority in wolf behavior in the world, and he heads the International Wolf Center. In his book, The Wolf, ravens and wolves have formed a symbiotic relationship in the wild, and they know each other's capabilities, and they have a relationship where they pretty much complement each other, and they when it comes to the hunt and their hunting habits and how they relate to they have a good now that doesn't mean that they are friendly to ravens, because when I had a I the personnel at the International Wolf Center read the book already, and they gave me some great feedback about wolf behavior. And when I showed them the manuscript of the book, they were like, "This happens all the time in our enclosure, but that doesn't mean that they're friends." So, and I was like, okay, that duly noted, because that can also be, so obviously Leah and Ameri are going to be friends, but they're also going to be their own. So they're also going to be they're going to complement each other, and
Right.
they're going to show us how people without a lot of times I don't like it when people are like, oh, you have autism. That means you don't like people. No, that doesn't mean I don't like people. That just means I don't like how people have treated me. That's just
Yeah.
different.
Right.
I just don't appreciate how I've been treated by people, but that doesn't mean I don't intrinsically like people. Like I'm a
Right.
human being. Intrinsically, in my DNA, there is a disposition that I have to somehow socialize to thrive. So that disposition is there. So in these two creatures, a raven and a wolf, they in the wild, according to those who have studied them, have figured out a way to coexist and thrive, uh, thrive while depending on each other's strengths.
Right.
Like a wolf will lead a flock of ravens to where there's food, or the ravens will point, and sometimes in the wild they will entertain each other, because ravens are actually very smart creatures.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not a zoologist, but this is what the experts are saying. So
Right.
not only does the relationship work because obviously they both have autism, but if you want to dig deeper, hey, why really do wolves and ravens actually do get along? Turns out that they do, and they have a symbiotic relationship, and they figure out a way to coexist. And I wanted them to be two different species as well. I wanted
Right.
them to, I didn't want just to, I wanted them to be two different species who can coexist and have the same struggles, and they can find a way to thrive together how our DNA says we should.
Some really exciting stuff. We have three characters now.
So far.
We're about a third of the way through the book, so we're moving right along. We got some convention appearances and stuff like that, and we have an expert coming on the next show. So if you have a question,
Yes,
don't be
please.
afraid. Drop it down in the comments, drop it on our Facebook, on our Instagram. Whatever questions you have, we will do our very best to get it on the show. It's going to be a very interesting discussion, I think, and a very enlightening discussion from an expert, because you'll have, I guess, three different perspectives of, I don't know if you want to call it an expert. I would say somebody with autism, and somebody who specifically studies it would be an expert. And then,
Right.
you have educators as well who have
Yeah,
to,
you have first, second, third person,
yeah,
that
you have a lot
perspectives.
of
So,
perspectives. It's going to be a very, very interesting discussion. So if you have a question or you have a comment on the show, please drop it down and make sure to subscribe and hit the likes
and
button.
also the person who is coming here is the co-author of the books, and he's
Yeah,
also my wife, Crystal. So, and we are parent. Not only she is married to a person with autism, and she is the mother of two children with autism. So,
right,
we have those perspectives as well. And please, we would like to make this disclaimer: when we talk about these things, we are not talking to people from up here. We
right,
struggle. Like we have we struggle parenting our children with autism. Sometimes we have to look at each other and shake our heads and be like, you know what, today they win. Or sometimes, we have to like, wow, he really did just threw a punch at me. Really, wow, he really is throwing a fit and screaming right here in the middle of public. So we do struggle with those things. We do not have parenting figured out. So we are we are in the same boat as you, parent.
right,
I have a saying. I have a saying that, when it comes to parenting, nobody has an idea what they're doing.
right,
And and obviously there's research, there's very valuable insights of parenting. I am not downing those, that valuable insight of
right.
parenting that the last 40 years of research have given us. But anybody who's parented more than one child will tell you, like this one right here, who's parented five, number one and number five are two totally different people.
Yeah,
So when it comes to parenting, we have to be humble. So I
right,
wanted to make that little parentheses right there that even though we are writing these books. My wife is an expert when it comes to when it comes to autism. She is a mental health professional with her education and her hours and everything, but we don't know everything. Our
right,
kids, they act up just like yours do. So we don't
right.
want to talk to people from up here. So, but we're excited to do this and see where this leads. So
Yeah,
hopefully by the next
exactly.
time you see me, the book will be very, very close to being complete. So, and we'll probably have another character revealed by then. Uh, so we'll have more, and who knows? Maybe we'll give a little sneak peek to another. Maybe I'll feel generous and I'll be like, I'll probably show some drafts of some illustrations that didn't make it. Some drafts so you can see some illustrations that didn't make the cut. So you can kind of see, oh yeah, I can see some wheels turning here, or maybe
Right.
I'll be nice and I'll show you like half of an official illustration or something like that. We'll
Right.
we'll, we'll see how that goes. So, but
Yeah.
thank you so much for following us, guys. Really, we're up to over 450 people for a guy that's just getting started. We only a month and a half of this, and uh, I'm just a dad trying to write a book and try to get people to understand him and his kids. That's all. So
Yeah.
hopefully
Well,
that by the next time we see each other, friends, we'll have a person here who can go a little deeper into autism, and I will have a we'll have some drafts of some illustrations that didn't make the cut, and but I want to show them to you so you can be like, oh, cool, I can see where the wheels are turning there. So you can see Abby and you can see Liam in their element and maybe Eddie in his element. I can't show you the rest because there's other characters too we haven't revealed yet, but we'll have some fun next time as well. So I'm really looking forward to this. So.
looking forward to it too. And for that, we're going to sign off for tonight. So thank you all for listening. Please subscribe either on Spotify or YouTube. Go like us on Instagram and Facebook. And we can't wait to see you for our next episode. For my friend MJ Lopez, I am your host, Austin Spiro. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And for now, you've been looped in. Thanks so much.
Thank you.